Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Now let us chant the Buddha's words on loving kindness. This is what should be done by one who is skilled in goodness and who knows the path of peace. Let them be able and upright, straightforward and gentle in speech, humble and not conceited, contented and easily satisfied, unburdened with duties and frugal in their ways, peaceful and calm and wise and skillful, not proud or demanding in nature. Let them not do the slightest thing that the wise would later reprove. Wishing in gladness and in safety, may all beings be happy. Whatever living beings there may be, whether they are weak or strong, omitting none, the great or the mighty, medium, short or small, the seen and the unseen, those living near and far away, those born and to be born, may all beings be happy. Let none deceive another or despise any being in any state. Let none through anger or ill will wish harm upon another. Even as a mother protects with her life her child, her only child, so with a boundless heart should one cherish all living beings, radiating kindness over the entire world, spreading upwards to the skies and downwards to the depths, outwards and unbounded, free from hatred and ill will, whether standing or walking, seated or lying down, free from drowsiness. One should sustain this recollection. This is said to be the sublime abiding, by not holding to fixed views, the pure-hearted one, having clarity of vision, being free from all sense desires, is not born again into this world. Sadhu, sadhu, sadhu.
Well, thank you, Bengal. And over to you now, if you'd like to begin your talk.
Thank you, Chris, and welcome everyone. Yeah, can you hear me okay?
Yes, can hear you perfectly.
Thank you, thank you. So welcome. I got only a few familiar faces. Marlene, how are you? It's been a long time. Nice to see you. And Paul, and that's about it. I don't know anyone. So this is going to be interesting. So my name is Bhante Pasado, and I was ordained in Bodhinyana about 2017. I took my full ordination. I spent 5 years in Bodhinyana in total before I fled the nest with Ajahn's blessing to go and further my practice in Sri Lanka. And it was actually just meant to be a bit of a reconnaissance at first, just to get the feel for the place. So I had a few monasteries, like forest monasteries, lined up, and I went over there for 7 weeks was the intention, and I was in the third place, which is in a national park called Yala, right down the southeast corner. It's a pretty hot part of the country, the closest part to Western Australia actually. It was pretty cool. From the rock I could just make out Bodhinyana lights on the hill. But that was pretty cool to kind of have that orientation. Actually, it was a nice thing. But I was there for I think I was doing about 2.5 weeks there or something, and ready to fly out on that weekend, and then the whole world got locked down. So I was quite happy about that. I'm sure there was a few other people in other situations that were also happy, but I know there wasn't. I know there was a lot that wasn't, and a lot of my practice evolved around that kind of situation, that pandemic situation as well, actually. So it was a really nice place to be able to do that because we were isolated, but I still had we have some internet coverage in there, so it was possible to keep a bit of an ear on what was going on. So anyway, that was it was good news. So extended visa, and that just continued on. And then I informed Ajahn Brahm that this place is really wonderful for practice, and I would like to stay kind of indefinitely. And so that's what happened. Originally, it was going to be 7 weeks. Come back here, clean everything up. Go and see the family and whatever again, and and then go back. And so I got the longer version and finally come back after 3 years. So it's going to be interesting. I don't think anyone here knows my mother, so I'm going to tell you there's a surprise coming for her this weekend. She doesn't even know I'm back in Australia, so that's going to blow her mind right on the Easter weekend. So I'm looking forward to it, actually. Anyway, a bit more about Sri Lanka, because I think it's quite important, because we often talk about in this practice, that it's important to have solitude, or at least a quiet area to practice. And so I'm sure. So is everyone quite experienced here? Actually, I'll just ask that. Quite experienced, a little bit. Any newbies here? Any newbies? No. Okay, that's good. So everyone is pretty experienced with their practice and what is required to have a good practice, and solitude's one of them, or quiet areas. And the remote jungles of Sri Lanka are pretty quiet, but you can also find them here, right? They're everywhere. Up here on the escarpment is a really wonderful place, and all throughout Perth you can find them, whether it's a park or in your quiet little room. So, that was really suited out there. It's a very isolated place. We do get people visiting. It's actually an archaeological site. So, tourists came, whether Sri Lankan and foreigners, but, once it got locked down, that dried off really quickly, which was wonderful for about 1.5 years, actually, or something like that. It was a long time when we didn't get, we'd get the odd ones or twos, or small groups from Sri Lankans mostly. And but it was really wonderful because the monastery is set like in a big cluster of granite rocks, basically, and jungle, and a dry jungle, so not really massive but pretty big. And it's all kind of just, it's granite. Most of Sri Lanka is granite, and not as old as Australian granite, but granite. And lots of like just eroded boulders and big long mountains, and then our kutis, which are caves in that location, they're like not burrowed, not like hole caves, but like rock ledges, and they're actually really ancient. They're back, the earliest dated is about 2,200 years. They've got inscriptions on the rocks from who donated them, and from who they knew donated it, like to the Sangha. They could determine the age, and so it's pretty fascinating when you're living in a place like that with wild animals and stuff that are pretty cool. Like as in they don't hurt us that much, but other people tend to get hurt a little bit, like down in the farms and stuff where they are trying to scare off leopards or elephants and things like that, because they're using deterrents which aren't conducive to equanimity, but anyway, it's a really wonderful place for that. So you've got all these factors. You've got the heat, you've got elements of, wild animals, scorpion, snakes and all that kind of stuff. And so there's a lot to work with in that situation, as in, to be calm with and accepting of. And of course that can draw on a better practice, a deeper practice. It's kind of a bit like surrendering or sitting on the edge of a cliff. And if you're a bit sleepy or whatever, you've probably heard that story. That's a good place for monks to sleep, to keep their attention active. And So it's it's a really wonderful place to practice, and many and very good monks come through there, like foreign and Sri Lankan monks. And so, you know, as much as we spend a lot of time by ourselves, but we can also, you know, we come together at Patimokkha and stuff, and for meals, and but we can also come together, discuss the Vinaya or meditation, how things are going. So there's you know, everything to learn from, basically, the environment and other monks, other good monks. And so that was the first 2 years. I actually could go on a lot further about it, but I won't. I'll try and, what have we got? 15 minutes. So I moved on. I had to go back and forwards to Colombo to do visas and stuff, and that was a bit of a messy affair at first when you don't know what to do. It's really difficult, and then you find people that can support you with that and help you, and it becomes much easier. And now, so now I've got an extended visa, so I can come and go for a while, which is really, really good. So I was coming and going from that monastery to Colombo. It's the other side of the country, which is only about 360 kilometres, but it takes about 12 hours on a bus. And they're good roads. They're like just windy and rough. Like, not the roads are rough, but the buses are rough and stuff. So, you know, you don't really want to make that trip too often. So we're always kind of trying to push for a longer visa, 1 year, at least 1 year or 5 years, so that we don't have to come into the city as much. And thankfully the last time that happened for me, because I had a very good sponsor, a bhikkhu over there who speaks English really well and knows the process and is really good at that. So I've got a bit of time now that I can just practice on my other practice, which has been, so in Thai tradition we call it Tudong, and in the Sinhalese tradition, or its Pali term, it's Charika. Here we would call it walkabout, and I kind of like that too. So, and that's just walking from village to village through jungles or through, I try to avoid the main roads, and I often head for backtracks, and you know, which is often at the horror of the locals. They often don't want to tell me where the roads are because they just think I'm going to, get hurt or something. But I do use Google Maps and another map app, and it gives you kind of tracks where you can't see. And anyway, so it's kind of fun. Like, and when they just, because there's a lot of Sri Lankans are temple monks, so they never go into the forest. You know, they don't meditate much, and they just do all the formalities. They do teaching at Sunday school and things like that. So, like, the average Sri Lankan temple monk probably wouldn't be caught dead doing that kind of stuff. So I think it comes as a shock to most village people when a foreign monk comes through. But probably what's nice to know, though, as well, is it's the meditation in particular, but the Dhamma in Sri Lanka, even though it's a very Dhamma-rich country, it's getting stronger and stronger, I think. I really feel. I mean, I've only been there 3 years, but I mean, you see things that just blow your mind. In that, I visited a good temple, it's a vihara in Colombo. It's from the forest tradition. The other weekend, I visited one weekend to meet them as a place that I can stay if I ever come into the city. And there was like 1,000 people there, and it's a very small area, maybe an acre, with buildings all through it, and they're all just sitting around on a Sunday, and it was a dana giving day where all the requisites that they'd collected gets distributed to poor villages and poor village temples. So that was really nice, like to see that kind of dana and generosity in that. Well, you see it all the time, but to see it like that. And then we came back. I brought another monk friend there the following week, a Sunday. And again, there's like hundreds of people there, and so I asked a gentleman, and they're listening to a teacher and a monk, and I asked the gentleman who approached us, and he said they're there for a retreat. So they were doing a one-day retreat at this aranya or vihara in the middle of Colombo, and it just blew my mind because I've never saw it anywhere else. Like hundreds of mendicants sitting around all day doing practicing meditation or listening to sermons. You see that kind of stuff, you get a lot of faith. And as we probably all know, that faith is really important on the path, and sometimes it's a bit hard to know where to draw it from. Faith and confidence for the path. Sometimes, you might hear teachings from certain monks that you're not familiar with or whatever, and they might sound like, you're not familiar with what they're talking about, and or they might not be meditation monks. So it's hard to sometimes get that confidence. But when you're living in a place like Sri Lanka, and particularly as a monk, you get so much support, whether it's a village, a back road. If someone rides past, they'll often ask if I need a lift and things like that. So every time I just feel it just heightens that sense of faith and devotion for the Dhamma, but for the robes, for the bhikkhu, not for me as an individual, but for a bhikkhu, for a mendicant. With that feeling, I know that I feel like that I'm in the right place, and it's constant. It's everywhere. Those kind of that generosity, just pindabat in a city, just down a back street, and you have no trouble filling your bowl with really, really good food, really healthy curries that are good for the body. For those that can, it's never too hot for me. It's not too bad. So some Westerners do have a bit of trouble, but it's very healthy food. Nothing's out of the packet, and everything's kind of ground up in the mornings and scrape the coconuts, and it's really amazing. Like just everywhere they're doing that kind of stuff, and it brings a lot of joy. You can be in the city, they're doing that stuff. You can be at a remote village, they're doing that stuff. And they've always got enough. Like they had a big economic crash last year. I was on the road walking for 3 months doing that, and it wasn't. I wouldn't have known. No, you wouldn't know there was an economic crash. The cities were a different story, And this is a bit of I really took something out of this, something that I'd been, understanding for some time. That these high density places, obviously they provide a lot of facilities and stuff, and people always go to the city, but that's where things break out quickly, right? Pandemics and, electricity goes down, train lines go down, and all of a sudden everyone's overheating or can't get to work, and panicking, that like literally really, really bad in Sri Lanka. There was lots of, thefts and violence and disruptions through that period on the road. You wouldn't have known. It was good to experience that, to be able to relay that to a couple of supporters that I had in the city that are sort of stuck in there in the little rut when they didn't particularly need to be. They had other locations where they could have stayed, but there was kind of like a mixture of things, like anxiety and uncertainty of their own, what they should do. Should we stay in the city and protect my house, for instance, because people are breaking into houses a lot. It was quite bad. Or do I need to be around my family to, whether it's parents or whatever, to help them, or should I just go to my sanctuary, in the country, in a state or whatever, something like that. So anyway, I saw that come up. So there was a bit of that confusion, and it was nice to help this one particular person, because it was like just guiding them with working more on the principles of quieting the mind and having a bit more discernment about choices to make under duress, under a stressful time, a time when lots of things are going wrong. But there's always food. So in the country there was always food. There was never a shortage that I saw. They almost had no rice because the government tried to go organic overnight in 2021. It was a very, very precarious, just completely foolish move, but they banned all chemicals and stuff. Then the next year they had to import millions of tons of rice from India. And so they did dodge a bullet with famine, actually. But they had plenty of vegetables, and they did have a lot of, there was everywhere, there's food everywhere, and they manufacture food as well. So it was a good lesson in those important things in life, small communities, rural, agrarian communities, family associations everywhere, or the hustle and bustle of a city. So take your pick. And I think it's pretty. We know where the quietness can be anyway. So they were interesting times. And then I walked and I stopped, and the longest period was 3 months, but other times were like a couple of weeks or things like that, and gained a lot out of it. One of the there's a lot of different meditations you can do when you're walking long distances, and just to be clear, I'm not like a full-on, fanatical walker. Like even here in the bush, I wouldn't go off and walk 5Ks and come back. I don't feel I need to do that. Like fitness-wise, I don't feel I need to. I'm pretty active when I was living here, but that's not really the thing that I enjoy. I'll do it once, I'm like, wow, that's really nice, but I just don't need to do it every day. But on Charika is a different thing for me, because it's going from this place to this place to this place. There's where I might be going to Anuradhapura or wherever, and so there was all those factors of, I guess, a goal, and I had to use my Google Maps, or otherwise I would have been going around in circles. It was just, the English isn't very good in the rural areas at all, and my Sinhalese is worse, and so it can be a lot of fun with hand gestures and broken English and stuff, but made do, and got through. But the Google Maps really, really got me through, and all I'd have to find is a temple to go to, and if it was within, 30 kilometres, but that's a max day. I only did like 28 once, but it was 10 or 15 kilometres is fine, because there's villages everywhere. You're always going through multiple villages or backtracks, as I said. And so that was good, but the big practice that I was feeling with that, amongst other things, whether it was just doing mantras or just on the breath or just on the feet or whatever, was actually Metta Bhavana, which was a really beautiful practice. And clearly it wasn't sitting down, I was doing it as I was walking. But it was a really nice indication of it doesn't matter what posture, you could be lying down, doing Metta Bhavana, you would probably go to sleep. So maybe not lying down, but walking, catching the bus, whatever, And it's really nice in those built-up areas, because you know what it's like. I'm sure everyone knows what it's like. There's a lot of, people are not always that happy walking around. So if you're practicing that Metta Bhavana in those times, it can bring a lot of joy, and that's what I did. It was just unbelievable, to be honest. And it's a very different country than the West, and because they're so devotional to the Dhamma and to the Buddha, they only have to see me and they just light up. But I wasn't looking all over the place, but if I just glance at someone and smile at them, they just radiate. And I radiate further. It was just incredible. It was just this back and forwards, and then it'd be like, whether it was a Muslim or a Hindu or a Buddhist, actually. It was really, really beautiful, and or a Christian for that matter. Of course, it's a very diverse country, and so I found that a really just essential practice, and I think it went a long way, because I really pulled up well. Like I only had one problem at one location. There was some factors there, but apart from that, every day I'd wake up in the morning, just no aches, no pains. Hips, knees, the whole lot, feet, all good. I'd give myself a bit of a massage the night before and stuff like that, but it was quite remarkable, and I think it was all of that. There was just this, I was travelling with like a real deep sense of joy and happiness and Metta Bhavana and loving kindness, just spreading it out. It was just incredible, and it was effortless. It was a very effortless practice. All I had to do was kind of look. But ironically, the same could happen if I walked to the bus when I was in Colombo just as I came back. I was there for a couple of months doing some treatment, and if I walked 5 minutes to the bus down the main road, I just couldn't help myself. There was just always this smile. So I don't know, maybe it's something about Sri Lanka or the Dhamma there and the energy. I don't know. It's a factor of everything, but it reciprocates, because if someone sees you and you're smiling effortlessly, not faking it, nothing like that, and it comes back. So, and then maybe they take it home, to work with them or whatever. So, and I know it did actually. Whenever they saw particularly a foreign monk, sometimes I heard about it, like right down the road at a different village that someone had seen you or something like that. But it was really nice. So. It kind of emphasised many things, but one being the Sangha and the importance of the Sangha in a society that is devoted to such a thing. and of course to the west, where more and more devotees are being drawn to the monastic sangha. It shows it's important, and hopefully we can all learn a little bit from it, and vice versa. I wasn't short of being taught a thing or two from Sri Lankans as I went to, which was lovely. It's just so fantastic. So, so that I probably couldn't emphasise enough that Metta Bhavana practice and how important it is for my own development, because as you're all aware, Ajahn Brahm's main angle is on kindness and kindfulness and metta and the other Brahma Viharas for that matter. But that single simple principle of kindfulness, and it can show up in many ways. Whether it's a smile or helping someone, letting someone go first, whatever. Is such a wonderful thing, and it is contagious, and it's often hard to do. I mean, to be honest, actually, as soon as I started leaving Sri Lanka, I was still good at the airport, and I'm like on the plane, I'm feeling a little bit less of this spontaneous joy. It was quite amazing how contagious it was from there, but I was mindful of it so I could keep it active. On the plane, when we had some babies and children, it was a little bit dramatic, like welcome back to the Western real world kind of thing. And but good for that awareness and that practice to keep it active, because I really felt for these parents. They're in this small space, probably feeling really embarrassed. So that was all part of that practice as well. So here in the West, we can do that as much as we can. Whenever we get awareness of that, just activate it. We slip all the time, and then we can just bring it back whenever we think of something nice, like whether it's Ajahn Brahm or one of his statements or one of his laughs or whatever it is, like a child crawling or anything, can make us smile and feel really good, and we can just share that. So I was kind of thinking about doing a metta practice, if you'd like. You're good for that. And if you don't want to, actually, so I'll just put this up. If you don't want to, you're free to
I think that would be wonderful. I especially
where are you, Chris?
reiterate what you're saying. I've just been in Laos for 2 months.
In where, sorry?
Laos. In Laos?
Laos, yes.
Yeah, and Lao people live the same way.
Yes, it's really obvious in developing countries, and particularly Asian countries that have a lot of Buddhism, obviously, but also others. It's very obvious that their happiness comes from a different place than ours, in that sense that, we're just driven to get more and more, and we have a lot of social conditionings that spur that on and lead to a lot of what we're experiencing now. Like, I have been keeping, like I said, a bit aware of the news and the many issues from, the floods and the Murray-Darling Basin and weather events and social events and mental illness and all manner of things. So we do have a lot of pressures and stresses in our Western life, but we can draw on all these wonderful teachings and wonderful experiences that I'm sure many of you have had in your lives and travels, which is important. It's important not to forget those things, I think. It goes without saying, I suppose, as I'm saying it, but it is easy to forget. And I say it particularly because, I can go back to when I first started my practice as a layperson, and when I first started meditation, where some of these early practices were quite amazing, to experience what bhavana can actually, what can actually come out of one when one practices bhavana, and I don't ever want to forget that. I don't want to ever forget that. What that experience is like. If the practice dips, you can draw on this as that source of faith and confidence in what you've already learnt, and it may be years since you've had one of those, but you can always draw on that, and so that's a really quite a nice factor to keep into consideration too. So, okay. Let's try that.
Like to begin your leading us in a meditation?
We can get comfortable, everyone. have a drink. I might myself, excuse me. So yeah, please get comfortable. I like to give everything a little bit of a shift, a little bit of an extension, and just a quick scan. I like to go from the head down, just scan through quickly, as in, and just look at everything, being aware of the body as you go down, whether it's any aches or pains or sensations, and just noting it and carry on down through the arms and the feet, down to the feet, and getting comfortable. If you just like to take awareness of your breath, wherever you like to do it, whether it's at the nostrils or the chest or the abdomen. Being aware of the breath, becoming present and aware. Now just take your attention to the body. Again, we'll have just a quick scan through the body. Just mentioning the parts as we go, just so that we can be a little bit more aware of those locations if it's a bit difficult to be aware of them. We'll start at the top of the head, the scalp, the crown of the head. Maybe you can feel a little sensation up there, maybe tingling or something, and that's nice to have that awareness. If not, just be aware of it, just in your mind's eye. And then we'll just come down the body, over the skull, down the face, and as we go, we just become aware, and we relax, and we just let it go. Let it droop. Let it sag down, it's okay, no one's watching. Down the face, the jaw, the tongue, allowing it to drop and relax. Down the neck, the shoulders, down the arms. Just relaxing and letting them drop away. Elbows, forearms, down to the hands. If you wish to move anything as you go, just to have a bit sharper awareness, you can, just slight movement, nothing big. Being aware of the fingers, letting it all relax and drop away. Coming back up to the chest and the back, coming down the back and the chest. You might feel an in-breath or the out-breath as you're doing this. And as you do, you can just allow that to relax and fall away. Again, you can still slight twist if it feels a bit tight or something like that. And I feel it really helps to relax the body for myself. Coming down through the stomach, down to the hips, the pelvis, relaxing, letting it fall away. Coming down to the thighs, You may flex them a little bit if you like and let them fall away. That's a really nice way to get familiar with them. Relaxing down to the knees. Relaxing the knees. The shins and calves. And down to the ankles and to the feet. Allowing all that to just relax and fall away into the earth. Grounding oneself. Feeling a part of that. Just relax into that for some moments. Now just bring your awareness back up to your chest. And I'd particularly like to take a focus and allow you to observe your heart. That in the biological sense of it, that pumping organ that keeps you alive, keeps the blood flowing, oxygen-rich blood. It's a wonderful thing, this heart, under all sorts of stress and pressures, hardly even given the time of day. But now we can give it a little bit of time, a little bit of love, a little bit of care, just observing it. You might be able to feel the rhythm, the beating. It might be heavy, it might already be soft. As we continue to go further into this meditation, it will continue to become soft and gentle. And likewise the mind will calm down more and more. Just observing that the organ of the heart, realizing what it's doing, like so much work. And now we have a chance to show it some gratitude. Show it some love, some metta. Some tenderness. We can even say thank you to it in our minds, or out loud if you wish. You can even cradle it, hug it, give it a bit of a big famous bear hug. Thank you, heart, for all the work that you do for me every day. Maybe we can do a little promise, a little vow to always protect you, to always look after you. Whenever my energy is up, whenever I'm stressed, whenever I'm furious or frustrated, maybe I can think of you. To be kind to you, that always does so much for me. And now also at the emotional, spiritual level, you can also reflect on the heart, be aware of those emotions that we feel. Particularly, right now, those ones of loving kindness and karuna, compassion, and mudita, sympathetic joy. That joy for others, whenever they've done something that makes them happy, let's share in that. can be contagious. Be aware that that's all coming from that heart of ours and the mind. Really embracing that, because it's a very, very valuable source of almost infinite energy. You know, some people like Ajahn Brahm could probably power the lights of Perth, who knows, eh? He's got so much metta and goodwill for people. But we can all aim for that kind of level. We can all aim to do a little bit better, to keep those lights on with the electrical charge of our heart. But really embrace that emotional aspect, that loving kindness. And maybe what sparks it may be a child, your grandchild, or for any parents out there, someone else's child maybe. Maybe your own child annoys you too much. Or a puppy dog, or a kangaroo like up here, or joeys in the spring. My goodness, it's a joy. And it makes the heart blossom. So whatever it is, just observe that. How does that feel in the chest? Tingling, warmth, ecstatic, joy. Now we're going to use that energy, because it's there. It's unlimited for a time span. We're going to use it, and we're going to wash it through our body. We're going to wash it through our chests and through our stomach region, through all the organs. You may particularly like to be aware of the organs or areas that are a bit faulty or injured, and you can leave that energy there a little bit longer. That loving kindness, that care and compassion. Not too long, don't sit on it too long, and just keep going, washing through. Coming down from the shoulders, down the arms, washing through that beautiful energy, that lightness or tingling or whatever it is. There could be light there as well, by the way. It can be a colour, can be anything that's coming up. Don't turn anything away. Coming down the arms. Again, if you've got sore elbows or sore wrists or anything like that, just be aware and just know that that is infusing through those places, down to the wrists and the hands. You may feel it at the hands, maybe on the palms or the fingertips. Come down to the hips and the pelvis, those poor old hips. I know they're a pretty common place for injury. You can drop some energy in there, some kindness, some care, some metta. Moving on down the thighs, the knees, also another place, right up there on the hit list. To keep just applying that principle down to the calves and shins and to the ankles and the feet and the toes, and back up to the head, through the neck, up through the jaw, the face, the back of the skull to the top of the skull, into the brain, because it works hard. It really works hard. We want to get all those neurons firing. We want to ward off all those ailments that come to people at various stages in their life. So just allow that heart energy to infuse the brain and up through the top. Just sit with that for a moment or two throughout the whole body. That infusion. And from here, we're going to go outside of the body. This is where it gets really fun, because this is where we can give to others without getting off our seat. That's my kind of fun. So from here, that energy that you feel, the light, whatever you may describe it as, or see it as, or feel it as, we're going to allow that to radiate out wherever you like, from the chest, the top of the head, your stomach, any one of the chakras that work for you, the whole body, just radiating out. Allow it to radiate out. Be aware of the radiation coming out of the body. Throughout the room that you're in, any creature, any being, any object that's in that room will all become infused with this energy of loving kindness. Continue on throughout your room, into the next room, throughout your house or building. Continue on out through the area around that building or house, to the neighbours, any animals that might be in the trees or in the air or on the ground. You don't have to see them, you may know they're there, you can just imagine that they would be there. Whether it's an insect or a bird or a reptile. Continue out throughout your whole area where you live, your suburb. Allow that light or that energy or that love, whatever you're feeling, to radiate out through your town or your city, continuing on through rivers and the sky, through rocks, buildings, businesses, police stations, police cells, other meditation groups. Just continue on, whatever comes into the mind that is going to be consumed by your radiating metta. Just allow that to happen. To the beach and the oceans, across the land, into neighbouring states and countries. And we're going to go right around the globe. Through the sky, in the mountains, through other countries, through all the hardships and all the joys and all the people on the street and people in their houses and the celebrations and the miseries. Just infusing that energy throughout that whole big picture. Maybe you can see or feel that energy around the globe now, encircling, encasing, like another ozone layer of loving kindness, an ozone layer of karuna or mudita, joy and happiness, just sharing that. Just sit with that if you wish. allowing it to infuse further and further into the big picture. Now, when we feel that they're all full, we're going to bring it all back. Just imagine it like the tide of the ocean at the beach, the wave coming up, which we've just done, that wave engulfing all of humanity and all the creatures and all of the possibilities on this planet, and the tide going back out into the great ocean, where all that can be diluted and mixed in, coming back across the planet, across the oceans, across the countries, coming back to your town, your suburb, your location, just your awareness coming back to those within your house maybe, coming back into your room and into you, back into your body, back into your presence, having the awareness back, seated, aware, calm and peaceful. With a quiet mind, with a less achy body, just allow that energy to run up and down and throughout for a little bit longer. Bring your awareness back to you, being present, and just gently we now come towards the end of the meditation. And when I ring the bell 3 times, you can gently open your eyes. Just before I do, it would be nice just to spend a few moments reflecting on that little journey. It started in the heart of us, and it worked its way around the whole of us and out. Just see what you have with that reflection. for a few moments. Gently come back. Welcome back, planet Earth. That was the short version. But, yeah. So...
Well, it's a nice landing.
I hope it was a nice landing for all.
It was a nice landing.
Thank you. Thank you. And what to say? I think I said it all. But it's really interesting because there are, as with all different meditation techniques that the Buddha has prescribed, there's many variations on Metta Bhavana that one can adopt. Some can be very simple, you know. We know the simple phrases and they can really work, you know. Particularly, it's like a mantra, isn't it? You can just snap yourself out of a sticky situation. Or, you know, some are more kind of personal and people keep it just to themselves. I personally tend to like to, you know, once I kind of investigated this version, I was hooked a bit. I kind of liked it. I enjoyed that, you know, how kind of, what to say, how one can affect oneself by the intention one has and by a simple practice like that. So, yeah, I like it. So I'll throw it over to the floor or to the screen. Any questions or queries? Don't make them too difficult because I don't know anything. So we'll see what you got. If anyone has anything. What happens here, Chris? That's what happens there, right? You are all...
Yes, you're all most welcome to unmute and ask questions or put them in the chat and I will read them.
Okay.
So,
right.
Oh, John is away starting up here. So John, would you like to
John
unmute?
Pepper, Mr. Pepper, how are you?
Yes. Can you hear me okay?
I can hear you, Mr. Pepper.
Super.
You probably don't remember me. You're from Denmark, right? Is that right?
No.
You're not?
I'm from Thailand.
You're in Thailand?
I'm in Thailand.
Not southwestern Australia, different?
Absolutely not, no.
Okay.
I'm Thailand.
I'm sorry.
No, don't.
My mistake. Okay. Go for it for your life. You've got your hand up there, I see.
I've been thinking a little bit recently about this sort of metta type meditation.
Yeah.
You led it in a very, very nice way, and I certainly, internally, I feel extremely calm, very, very happy, and I could imagine metta spreading all around the world.
Nice.
And I even spread it out to the universe and let it just continue. And
That's
I
nice.
find that I actually can do that. But the question I have is, does it really move? Does it actually actually go anywhere? Or does it actually stay inside us? Is it in our imagination?
Oh my gosh.
And that sort of leads you onto is our imagination reality?
Yeah.
That's a nice simple question.
It is. I'm glad we started with that, actually, because I've got a theory.
Okay, well. got one too.
I will just draw on my philosophical physicist self, and no, I won't really go there, to be honest. But so a good thing, John, you're a seasoned meditator?
No, not seasoned.
Not seasoned, okay.
No.
But you're spicy, I see, John Pepper.
Yeah.
I'm sorry,
yeah,
joke.
like hot stuff.
Hot stuff. So the one thing with our actions and our thoughts is largely about intention. So, it's one of the guiding elements of what the Buddha teaches is it's, not really the outcome, but what you're intending to do. So, for instance, as a monk, we have a huge amount of rules to uphold. If say, a serious rule is broken by accident, like we didn't intend to do that, but something happened, that then you don't have that offence. And there's a lot of logic in that. In fact, in an honest world, the judicial system would work really well with that methodology, but we need to have honest people that are really willing to be honest with themselves, and we're highly conditioned to be otherwise, I guess, in a lot of our circumstances. So intention is paramount. Now, energy, working. Have we got physicists here? Who have we got? Have we got anyone that's a scientist? Anyone that wants... No, and that's good because we probably don't want to go here too. But energy works in mysterious ways, right? Energy does all sorts of things. We're only scratching the surface of what we know about it in physics and in modern science. So I don't need to go there. I'm confident, personally, my own feeling, that something happens. I do know of scientific evidence from remote healing, for instance, and it's proven, all right? Remote healing. If you're not familiar with it, you can probably look it up, but remote healing, and people go through this very simple process, and a person can undergo healing through that. So that's something that I'm aware of. I don't study it or research or anything like that, but I'd learnt about that quite some time ago. But intention's paramount. But when you think about it, it's even if you're in a room, and say with your family or others, and you're happy and they're not so happy, but you're not engaging, and say they're not looking at you, but you're happy, that, is it possible that your energy then would affect them? I think most people understand that it does. Maybe it's from a glance and they see the smile or the calmness. So, it can happen potentially, with this example, it can happen in a small location. So I just think, hey, why not? But it is intention. And it's just so amazing to be able to divert the mind to something good, something wholesome, something positive that affects you right now, as you described. And thank you for that feedback that you described so eloquently. And the universe was the other stage, and I thought I better not go there for this one. But it's fun. It's really fun because I think you can also learn a lot too. If you're actually in deep samadhi doing this kind of stuff, this is where insights and wisdom come from, is from those kinds of experiences at that deeper level. And probably in that moment, in those times, you will be able to answer your own question, John. So, but confidence in that intention is paramount, absolutely paramount. If we're diverting rotten energy, rotten thoughts, and transferring them to these wonderful thoughts, we're benefiting. As soon as we walk out that room, or through that door, or back into the world, those people are going to benefit. So that's not a bad start. That's all I got. Hope that's good. Anyone want to add to that? Or do you want to add to it, John?
The intention aspect is,
it's
not one I've actually sort of verbalised or not one I verbalised myself. But
interesting, yes.
I never quite thought of it as I thought of it as an action, but as an intention.
No, intention or even motivation or even, I would encourage one to use that as a bit of a meditation object. Investigate it some, because intention is absolutely paramount. So it's funny because to me it just seems really normal. Probably 20 years ago I would have been saying the same thing, going, no, whatever. But yeah, so I've been meditating a little while, and so anyway, it'd be a nice object to observe and to get to dig out a little bit. Yeah, for sure.
Super.
Great.
Thank you so much.
Welcome. Anyone else want to add to that one just briefly? Yes, please. Pinda, sorry. Oh, do I do that, Chris? Do I do the...
Yes, that's fine. If you want to, just leap in. Pinda, would you like to...
There we go.
Just a quick one.
Yeah.
Reminds me, well, first of all, there's a couple of engineers in the group here, so they'll know about energy transfer. But
The what, sorry? There's engineers at what?
There's a couple of engineers in the group here.
Yes.
They'll know about energy transfer.
Okay, great.
I'm reminded of when Ajahn Brahm has mentioned this before.
Yes.
When there are certain people around whom you are comfortable and others around whom you're not uncomfortable.
Yes.
So there's something happening there.
Yeah.
Somebody walks into a room, if they're this side of the balance or that side of the balance, you sense it.
Yeah.
So there is that comes in.
There's something going on there, isn't there?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Yeah, as I said, energy, to ask your mates now, energy works in mysterious ways, doesn't it? And they're all going, it's crazy. But we can, that's it. But again, we can just keep inducing this positive energy whenever we've got whenever we get a calm in the storm. Bang, let's go to positive. Let's go to metta, or any of the other Brahma Viharas or any other beautiful energies and thoughts, and something good will come out of it sometime. Maybe not immediately, but anyway, yeah. Someone else went to speak up?
Yes, somebody else actually was...
Gloria, sorry, Gloria.
Gloria, would you like to unmute and go ahead?
No, I just want to say that I think the energy thing, I used to think that it's fake also, but recently I kind of started to feel it because I live in Hong Kong, and as you know, the past 2 years, and Hong Kong went through a lot of social unrest and things.
Yes.
And I think there is a lot of social unrest create a general atmosphere or energy because people to have kind of negativity generate out. Yeah. And sometimes, when I go to some of the places that are particularly related to that, I will feel my mood if I originally is like this, and then I will instantly go down. Yes. And then I realize that I am picking up those energy, and I think it's related to negative people and negative situation as well, and that's why I think the Buddha always stress a lot of you associate with good friends. Perfect example. And you pick up those energy from them, and then you can become positive yourself also. Yeah, perfect. Thanks, Gloria. That's a really, really well put too, because it's a really excellent example. If there's a mob going on down the street, you can feel that from a long way away. Obviously, you might hear it, but if you're associating with wholesome people, and that's the way you tend to go, right? I think everyone can nod in agreement that once you start getting on this path, some of those people that were a little bit more or a little bit less conducive to peace and calm don't become so much in your life anymore. So it's a good way to flush friends away, I guess. Okay, good one.
Okay, we've got one in the chat for you, Venerable, if you're okay.
Sure, please.
What drew you to Buddhism?
I mean, it's a really easy question, but it's multifaceted. But where to start? I was a pretty conventional kind of person, born and bred Roman Catholic, but from an early, from my teenage years, from boarding school, I probably, I just, not that I had any great senses or anything, but I just felt that there was something missing from that. And I didn't really investigate much. I wasn't like some whatever, great searcher, but it was always there in my life, even in my days of unruly behaviour, which were interesting. I learnt a lot from. So, but I was also always a little bit more, inquisitive about those spiritual aspects and those inner aspects that our culture just really, really struggles with. But funnily enough, we go to, these developing cultures, whether it's, Africa or Asia or Americas, South Americas, and there's just something going on, and I started to see that travelling, and then, I was drawn to the Dhamma because, life was tough. I was travelling all over Australia and stuff, having a supposedly great old time, but, had my toys and, had a big Toyota and stuff, and I was pretty kind of free in that sense. But there was, it was tough. There was a lot of suffering I felt. So I really understood the concept of dukkha in the many-faceted way, like non-satisfactory, suffering. Even the good things can turn to, displeasure, when you lose it or if it's not quite the right, whatever. So I really was getting that as a as a person, And so I was, and it was hurting. I felt it, and like my heart felt it, and my relationships felt it, and so I'm like, there's got to be something in this. And I think, to be honest, for the next bit of that, I don't really know. I mean, obviously I did know the Dalai Lama and his work. I mean, he's been around for so long in the West, but I couldn't say for sure when I had seen or heard him. But there was other influence. But I was just drawn to it, and I got a bit of material, read a little bit about Buddhism. I thought that sounds nice, And so I went to India to search it out a little bit, and I started with Tibetan Buddhism, which I was really drawn to first. There was something in that culture that really that I'm really drawn to, and but the religion is a little bit too for me. It's too many rites and rituals. Where Theravada is, basically that's all we got. Something like that. That's all we need. We don't need. Great. I mean, we do have shrines and stuff, but we don't need them, particularly as a solitary monk or a forest monk. We can keep it very, very simple. We have kind of holy days, of course. We've got those special days to worship and to respect and to remind us what we're actually doing. But I love the simplicity of Theravada and Buddhism, and so I came back to Australia. This is like back in 2006. And I was curious big time, and I discovered meditation deeper through Vipassana, which helped me a lot as a stepping stone. And then, I didn't think I was going to become a monk, to be honest. I had other plans like, permaculture and sustainability and that kind of stuff. But my back was a bit bad, and that wasn't going to happen. So. And then it just dawned on me, I came here to visit to Bodhinyana, and it just dawned on me that this is probably where I'm going to do my work. So that was pretty amazing, and it was quite effortless. Like, I didn't want to be an anyism, to be honest, and I didn't want to particularly be a monk, obviously, because it's an ism. Because I had my feelings about that. About, these man-made kind of aspects of a spiritual practice or of a spiritual teaching. But as soon as it dawned on me, honestly, it just fell away. Like, that's how ready I was. It just fell away. And I'm like, literally within seconds, I just went, I'm going to be a Buddhist. It was a really crazy thought. And I'm going to be a monk. Just like that. It was. We were like on these grounds. It was quite amazing. I was here for like 30 minutes that day when the second time I came. So that was the start of the step, and many steps to go. But now I've taken that big leap over the Indian Ocean here. But like what's really it doesn't matter. But back in the Gondwana days, India used to be part of Southwest Australia. Like, we're really connected, and there's lots of flora and fauna, not lots, but there's some that I just go, wow, I remember you, you know, from way back there, like butterflies and little butterflies, and, you know, same as the ones here, and some plants, and some, you know, they've got I only got 2 monitor lizards, we got like, I don't know, 22 or something. So that was nice anyway, and so the steps keep going from there. So suffering in a nutshell. That's what drew me. Yeah. The first noble truth.
Well, Wendy and Jake and John just unmuted and said thank you very much, Venerable, for your answer. And
you're welcome. Thank you.
Is there any story of kindness that happened to you from strangers in Sri Lanka that you can recall and would like to share with us?
You make me cry, mate, trying to bring up something like this. No, it's everywhere. It's all the time.
Oh, I don't mind if you cry.
No, it's really it's beautiful. Yeah, it's really overwhelming. At times, I mean, like at the time, I just take it in my step. It's no problem. But if I reflect on it, it just you know, it's really good heart medicine. Particular story. Gosh. Well, so. It's all the time. It's just like, you know, they'll do some people do anything for you. So I was in an isolated place. I was on Charika at the time I was sort of training with another senior foreign monk. He's in the Thai tradition as well, from Canada. He's a good friend of mine. Bhante Joe, he's actually got a Facebook page if anyone's interested. Check him out. He's always got lots of little nifty bits of it. Very nice teachings, actually. So very easy to remember. And he's a great teacher, and so we were doing a charika together, and what happened? We come to the Lagala region, which is Jnana Deepa Bhante is famous for. Some people might know the name. He's a really, really famous forest monk in Sri Lanka from Denmark, European Denmark originally. He'd been in like 50 reigns. And he was a real hermit, and I met him on the first. He passed away in 2020 when I was there. But I met him because he was at a monastery where he was being treated, and I could serve on him and those kinds of things. So that was a moment when I could give something, which was really nice. And he was sharing his teachings and stuff. I did my first Posita. Patimokkha Day, which is 2 times a year, full moon and new moon. I did my first in Sri Lanka with them, with that forest tradition in the jungle, and it was a little bit surreal. Getting a bit sidetracked there, sorry. But what happened? His area, the places that he had established is in the Lagala region or the Knuckles Mountain region, and they're all isolated kutis and caves for serious meditators. And I went there just for a short time to get familiar. And I went to a place, one of the few places of the whole areas actually that have leeches. And I hadn't come across many leeches before, and I was a bit blasé about using any kind of repellent, and I was a bit ignorant actually of it. And it's a 3-kilometre walk to the kuti, and it's uphill and it's wet, and and I started getting leeches all over me. And you pick them off, and then you keep walking, and then they're on you again, and it was pretty full on. I'll try not to gross anyone out too much, but I was with a supporter. He drove me there to this place, and then the local villager who couldn't speak any English, an old man, took us up, and a really lovely old man. And I'm like just going crazy, all these leeches on my feet, like I'm pulling them off, and they just back on, and when you stop and they're just all on the ground. And then, we'd been gone for a couple of kilometres. I'm like, I can't do this. How can I do this every day for Pindabat? This is not possible. Because I just didn't realise there was actually repellents you can use for them. And anyway, so I get up there and I asked how far to go, and he said 5 minutes, and it wasn't 5 minutes. But we got up there. I took a breath and went, of course I can do this. What am I thinking? So I had this massive aversion. So, everything's teaching you. if you're willing. You know, if you're willing to look at it, calm the heart rate down just for a minute to give you to get a perspective and not just all this, you know, aversion. A long story short with this one is I used a repellent that I had a reaction to, and my feet blistered. And so it's a wet area. I'm still getting leeches, but the repellent worked. I tried various other ones and they worked, like including soap and including salt and things like that. But within 5 days, I had major infections on my feet, and so they was swelling. It was full on, coming right up my shin. I was just like, my gosh, look at this. And I finally I tried to keep them clean and all that kind of stuff, and I started using Dettol water. And I thought the next day, which is day 6, when I thought the next day, if it's got worse, I've got to go, because otherwise I might, you know, be incapacitated and they will have to drag me out. So the next day it wasn't any better, so I left, and I rang. So I got to use a phone in the village, and I rang the head monk of this area, which is Bhante Pasado. He's a Kiwi monk, and he's been there for a long, long time. And he rang a supporter who's a doctor, and him and his wife had spent time in Brisbane, so English was okay. He rang them, probably an hour drive away, to come and get me. I just thought I was going to go to a hospital and get a drip and it'll be okay. They picked me up. They took me back to their house, to their little granny flat, and they treated me for a week and fed me, got medical. He was a doctor, so he was treating me like I was a very good patient. He was really happy to be treating me with real tenderness, real care. His friend was a podiatrist, a skin doctor, dermatologist. So she came for her opinion. She was lovely. She could speak good English, and she's like, well, we'll give you antibiotics, pills, but if it doesn't get better, you'll have to go on a drip, because it was pretty bad. So my feet were purple. They actually looked like dead person's feet. But within a week, so within 2 days, the swelling went down, and within a week, I left that house to Kurumbigala, which is in the Yala National Park place, and they were 70% better. And it was these people that serve lots of monks, and the kindness. So they had little kids that were adorable, you know, and they were just so generous with their food and their respect, and a foreigner, you know, just looking after a foreigner like that, and you know, just no questions asked. It's just this kindness, but it's all the time. Someone will stop on a motorbike and hamdruni, they say hamdruni over there, or hamdru for a monk, or sudu hamdru, which is a fair monk, you know, a lift, and I'm like, nah, walking, you know, but all the time like that. So it would be, there's many examples, but it's beautiful. And again, it allows for this, because, you know, it's not unique to Sri Lanka, it's happening here. I'm seeing it, you know, on some news that I get, some of these profound charitable actions, which I might just give an example of, because I read it, I think it was on The Guardian a week or something ago. I can't remember if it was Melbourne or even Perth, actually. I can't remember, but it was an Afghanistan family had just come over, and they had like a voucher card for the shopping centre they were in, and it was like small. And some locals came past them and asked where they were from, and they said Afghanistan, and they said, fill up your basket, we're paying the bill. And it's that kind of stuff which is contagious, huh? So in the words of the Buddha, for instance, you know, there's a lot of emphasis on being charitable to monks, particularly good monks like, you know, Ajahn Brahm and others of that kind of calibre. But, you know, and it's true, like merit-wise, like you're going to get a lot of merit by doing that unconditionally and no questions asked, with proper intention, etc. But giving to those that really need it, whether it's a stray dog or homeless person or a charity that you might choose, we need it. The world needs it. So, hooray for dana. It's great. Generosity, giving. Yeah. So it's nice. Yeah.
Well, thank you, Venerable. That was very beautiful, very moving.
Thank you.
We have a message for you, Venerable.
Yes.
From Ruchi. Ruchi says, Venerable, thank you for your kind thoughts about Sri Lanka from where I come from.
Hey.
So happy that you're enjoying the country.
Thank you, Rishi. I think I saw your face there before, did I? Yeah, I think I must have saw your face there before. Yeah, thank you. It's a real pleasure. Ah, yes. Hello, Rishi. Yeah, it's a real pleasure. Where are you from?
My hometown is Kandy.
Kandy.
Where the Malika is.
Ah, okay.
Yeah, Paradinia, yeah.
Paradinia. Ah, I have friends there, yeah. Yeah, nice.
Oh, that's nice.
It's a nice place, yeah. Busy?
Of course, yes. Yeah, very beautiful.
And beautiful. Yeah, nice one, Rishi. Thank you. Yeah, it's a pleasure. It's a real joy to be there, and hopefully others. If you ever intend on a pilgrimage, obviously, the central Ganges Plain is the obvious choice of the holy places of the Buddha's path, but Sri Lanka has got some pretty epic history as far as arahants are concerned, and ups and downs. It's come in waves of abundance of Dhamma to almost nothing to back again, and consequently all amazing history there with lots of sacred places. So yeah, it's a very wonderful island, the pearl of the Indian Ocean. Yeah.
Well, that leads us to exactly the time when we need to think about finishing and winding up. But before we do that, could I ask you for a favour, Venerable? I'd like you to, if you would be so kind as to offer us all a blessing in Pali.
Sure. Okay. Nati me saranang anyang, buddho me saranang varang, etena sacho ajena soti te otu sabada. Nati me saranang anyang, dhammo me saranang varang, etena sacho ajena soti te otu sabada. Nati me saranang anyang, sangho me saranang varang, etena sacho ajena soti te sola sabala. Sadhu, sadhu, sadhu. So may you all be well and happy, and may your path open up and provide what you're looking for. It's not always easy, but it's definitely rewarding when one finds their pace and finds their step. And just remember to try and draw off, the Buddha's words, the Buddha's inspiration, the Dhamma and the Sangha as your guides or refuge. And I wish you well, and may you all be happy and safe, and all your loved ones and family. So, thank you very much. It's been a real pleasure.